things started. I want to thank y'all for coming through, been asked a question, rather than go over an entire live stream explaining my point about Spinster-lectuals. Um, with the advent of people thinking that this place is about entertainment, you need to understand that that's a personal decision, choice, and failure as a human being to actually think that. Um, to actually come to a place, be here for years, and all of a sudden jack in the box to some other type of things that ain't that doesn't really serve anybody within the space itself. So you have to understand that people call themselves intellectuals and juggernauts and master teachers and teachers that are in the teacher profession and all this type of stuff. But at the end of the day, they have no solutions to any type of problem. The only thing that they mastered was the art of having a circular conversation with no expectation of progress. No expectation of progress, none whatsoever. So what they do is they invite on a bunch of non-interested people who are not invested in anything and actually leverage those people's ignorance. What's going on? Hold the true hostage. So they leverage those people's ignorance to keep up a nonsensical conversation. When if you actually stood for any of the things that you said you actually stood for, it's very easy for you to go and actually have those results that you claim that you got. A lot of people think that they have the actual solution for everything, when the solution has always been deal with the same group of people from beginning to end. That's been the solution for these people for this amount and period of time. And there's not any type of man in society that has actually solved any problem this type of way. So you have to understand that a lot of these people are disingenuous. They jump on panels, they have no idea what they're talking about. And if you ask them a specific question, they just try to move the conversation to somewhere else. But again, you have to provide a solution for what you're actually talking about out here. That's nobody else's job but your own. If you want to actually be in a space that you actually do that with, you actually have to be responsible for the actual outcomes at some point. Everybody actually wanted to be the guy who actually got all the ass back in the day, but nobody's actually here to actually solve any problem. The people who call themselves intellectuals, they never debate anybody. Because if you debate them and you bring them into an actual situation where they don't run the panel and they can't really hide behind the ignorance of other people on the panel, you'll see very clearly that these people are here because of the circumstance and the situation the way it currently is. So rather than go and actually repeat these live streams, because I have like 900 and something live streams on the same subject, I'm just going to replay the actual live stream where I actually went over this actual idea of what the actual Spinster actually was. So, with that said, we're just going to go through this thing pretty quick. It's about 40 minutes, and then I'm going to talk about this stuff afterwards. So that way you can't have people run up the actual score talking about there's all these perfect personnel here, but don't have access to them. But they expect you to keep dealing with the same people in the same environment. So with that said, hold on a second while I get this started. And we're going to play this, and then we're going to have a discussion afterwards.
Tomorrow here. Thank you for like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. We're going to have a very important discussion tonight about the male spinster. You see them within our space. They're plus-age individuals who pretty much want you to focus on things that don't make any sense, especially for the age to which they're teaching them, because they want people to join them on Team Loser. So what we need to do is we need to discuss what these things are about, and we need to pretty much state the different types of male spinsters, so that way you can know them when you see them. So that way we can be able to get these people up out of here and pretty much focus on the things that we need to focus on within this space. Just a March, thanks for the $1 super chat. Given the things that happened within the past week, you have to ask yourself whether these people are indeed evil or they are undisciplined. To me personally, this is a deliberate act on their part. what they want to do is they want to malign the space and turn us all into some type.
Again, I have no idea why that's even happening. Hold on a second. I think I know what the problem is now.
Type of woman hating psychopaths who are talking about things that don't have any type of relevance anywhere in the world, and we're just making all this stuff up. Well, we as men, we talk about issues and then we solve them. This is why you have separate movements like SYSBM, IBMOR, MGTOW, and the latter, because people are figuring out ways that they can be able to not submit to problems within society, but find answers outside of them in society. You have to realize that male agency scares a lot of people. And as you can see within this space, most of the people who don't like that particular type of stuff is men. Because you have to realize that most of these people who decide to go down this road of being a non-productive person and keeping up any type of non-progress in society has really netted them a position of power within the female structure to which they empower. You have to realize that this isn't some government conspiracy. It is done by the people who actually do not care about male progress at all. Because these people actually empower female irresponsibility, and then they lock themselves into such a system and act like they don't know what went on. So I'm just here to tell you that these things are not a mistake. What you're seeing is not the way it should be. And if you have any contact with any other cultures within America, you would actually see that these things are just centered around an actual culture where these things actually happen. Thanks, Richard. Super chat, Remington Restaurant. Peace, MOT. So you have to realize that the older individuals that you see within this space and the things that they talk about during this pandemic actually shows their actual viability in a real world where masculinity actually worked. You have to realize in other cultures, they don't have 50-year-old guys talking about getting access to women. It's up to the culture to provide the women in society and the culture so that way the men can interact with them and create families. You have to understand that we have a generation and a half of women who are like still on the market because of the choices that they made within the marketplace. And that isn't any fault of a man trying to quote unquote compete within the marketplace. That's just way too many people in the marketplace who don't belong here, both men and women alike. So you have to understand that these people have been promised the future of unsuspecting men as the actual prize.
All right, hold on a second. I'm not sure what the fuck that's even about. Hold on a second.
Of being on the market for such a very long time. And this is what these older individuals actually promise within society. So you have to understand that this is a deliberate act. It's neither evil or undisciplined. It's a specific act to empower a specific group of people to get a specific result so people can have a specific level of power within a work environment. Like if you look at it top down, you can be able to see what the actual factions are and how they work together in order to make sure that the overall concept of black meritocracy never works. So you have to start with the obvious issue, the women. Now, you have to understand that no matter how you try to counsel women within the society, if they're being nurtured by personnel within the society to be reckless at a level that can't nobody really care about or even have control over, you're going to have a lot of results of this stuff that are on the market. Like right now, all these things that we're seeing in the marketplace, these decisions have been made. Right now it's 2020. So if a kid is actually 11 years old, these problems started in 2009 when they first had the child that we're actually now seeing the actual results of in 2020. So the reason why you don't see the actual results of the activities that have order with them is simply because we haven't stopped the premier problem from happening from beginning to end. The best way to solve this problem is who they pick as a mate, the actual child that is produced, the environment that they're in, and the outcomes of the child. So you have to realize in this particular space called the black community, where family creation doesn't really matter, the only thing that matters is a woman's kind of comfort within this type of work environment. And I was never taught or never cultured. I was always leery of men who wanted to protect women from undescribed threats. These people who want to quote unquote protect the women in the environment, the only thing they're doing is masking their actions as in benefiting off of a woman's irresponsibility within the same environment that they claim that they're actually saving her from in the actual environment. Like I said, this stuff still comes down to mate selection, the overall environment to which the child is actually raised in, and the outcome of those actions. This is actually what actual people judge this stuff based off of in every other culture. Shout out to Goshen. What's going on, man? So you really have to understand that the problem isn't the way the behavior of a woman acts. It's the fact that she got somewhere else to run to after her activities are so-called over, which is the actual problem here. So you have to understand when you have people who concentrate so much and so hard on quote unquote game, you don't understand that interaction with a woman in any other culture is a pretty basic thing. But you have to realize that trying to get a basic thing out of a person who have not been nurtured to do so in a generation and a half is damn near impossible. That's why it looks so magical when a man makes it look like he's running something within an environment of women. Because under normal circumstances, the women don't respect anybody within that environment. So when a guy makes it look like he has control in an environment that doesn't really respect men, I'm not going to lie to you, it does look magical. But at the end of the day and behind closed doors, that person who acts that way actually have less respect from the actual person than they actually lead on to believe. That's just the way things go within the society. And also something you have to understand that the more irresponsible they keep her, the more they don't have to live up to the masculine principle of productivity. You have to understand they're doing this for a specific reason. The specific reason is they're proud of being a homosexual. They don't make any bones about telling people that they're utter clowns for trying to do things the quote unquote right way in society and life. They try to make you look like the villain of their story when they're actually the villain of your story. But since their numbers are so great, it really seemed like this stuff is actually pretty normal until you actually leave the country and go other places where men actually run stuff. And then you see that this isn't the way things normally work. So you have to realize that they require you to be very restrictive in your choices and decision making process so that way they can keep their particular gains in a certain type of environment. But all of this stuff works so long as you don't have any choice but them within the actual environment. Now, once you decide to go other places and have different experiences, you would see very quickly that the way that you've been cultured and nurtured into thinking that these things are actually normal, you will see them as actually abnormal the moment that you go places and realize things the other way. But these people in the same environment that depend on your ignorance, they actually need your help in not progressing in life and society as a human being, so that way they can be able to keep their gains in society. And these people have the nerve and the gall to call themselves pro-black for the most part. But you have to understand that not only are these people anti-black, but they're anti-progress of any kind. These are the things that you have to look at and that you have to recognize. And as much as you should stay away from these people, I tell you straight up, never be concerned with the woman's comfort who have this type of background, track record, or attitude toward men and productivity. You have to understand that it's not really out of the norm to want to be rewarded for your actual work that you do in a proper light. But if you're actually maligning yourself to an actual environment where they don't care about you, you actually look like the enemy in such a situation. And I'm just telling you straight up that these things are not the case. This is why you need to make sure that you have a well-rounded idea of how things actually work in other cultures rather than just maligning yourself to this one. Because what you're actually being forced to actually be in could not be for your best interest, but it's definitely good for their best interest. You have to realize these 50-year-olds are currently on the market trying to socially engineer you into thinking that these things are actually normal when they're anything but normal based on the outcomes of the actual actions in the actual environment. You need to see what the overall plan is for the future of you. You have to understand that these people don't care about black people. They care about their place among what is known as black people. And those are two separate and different things. You have to understand that. Most of these people are happy about their interactions that they have within this environment. They don't have the actual results that are actually here that every other thriving and working society actually benefit from. They have a very special set of circumstances that are actually dependent on non-progression of anybody else in the environment. And that's pretty wrong. What's going on, Doug? So what you, the individual, have to do and understand that this gender side is real. And that is gender and then side. It's kind of like genocide, but they're trying to remove the masculine, independent, logical thinking man from the equation. You have to understand what that's about. That is about replacing most of the men in society with pretty much guys who don't produce, guys who have zero responsibility, and guys who do nothing but suck up to women all the time. That's a lot about what those people actually think about. And these are things that you should not be here dealing with. You have to understand that a lot of these things that are hoisted onto you within this environment are not things that you should be worried about. This has nothing to do with you. Your future has nothing to do with the past of these people and the things that they've done with their lives. You are not supposed to be here worried about grown ups' concerns. You are supposed to be worried about your own concerns inside your own life during your own generation, not worrying about trying to fix the problems of the past. You have to realize this space was created by a group of men who had some of the same issues going across the board. And that we needed a space to actually talk about these issues because the sociologists and actual black academia was not interested in solving these problems because they did not want these problems solved. Because if these problems were solved and a lot of people became more productive, they wouldn't need an educated elite to stay in place and actually stop these things from repeating themselves in a cyclic cycle. You have to understand that there is a conscious effort through the deliberation, through the deliberate creation of non-viable families that is somehow held to the same standard of everybody else who created them in a far more viable context. You have to understand that everybody wants to be pro-black, but nobody wants to take responsibility of the actual outcomes of the decision made within this entire culture. So when people actually come out and claim to be pro-black, they only come together to malign people because of their point of view. They don't come together to get rid of gang culture. They don't come together to get rid of actual criminals within the society. They don't come together to ensure these women are picking viable mates in order to have kids with that we all are actually going to be judged by in the future. None of this stuff actually happens within society or life. But somehow these are the same people who come out here and try to make it look like they are so much more pro-black than the next person, which I think is completely ridiculous. And they look for any reason whatsoever in order to flip tables and not have a viable conversation about the actual issues in society. They always try to focus on other things that has nothing to do with actual progress in the actual society that they want people to actually operate in. So I'm sorry. At this point, you have to pick a side because the fence sitters are worse than the enemies at this point. Treating everyone as equals help those who refuse to hold a minimum standard while forcing the other people who do to be evenly divided amongst those people who don't want to hold a standard but want to benefit off of everybody else's standards that they have in place. You have to realize that most of these people do not care about progress and they do not want anything to move forward as long as they lose their position that they have in this current society. They don't want to move forward. They want to maintain their position in society first, and they maybe get down to actual black progress somehow 11th or 20th in the actual line. You have to realize that these things are not going to work unless you take your decisions very seriously about who you choose to interact with. There is truly no reason or rationale that you should be playing this game the way the people are trying to culture you to play it. Because at this point, it makes absolutely no sense to do so at that point. Now, you have to understand that you've had these social class of idiotic narcissists who come across and try to make it look like it's all in your head. Like you should forego your logical and rational thinking processes to actually step toward an emotional mind state and frame so that way you can be able to try to understand and submit to the actual problem rather than removing yourself from the situation and finding another marketplace for you. There's a lot of people out here who just want you to shut up and leave, but there's a lot more people who actually don't want to do things the right way or hold people to the any type of standard so long as they stay. So you have to realize that these people are duplicitous at worst and deliberately disingenuous at best. You have to understand that most of these people have been bought off with vaginal assets and strategic silence. This has been their actual price that they've paid themselves in order to keep this thing going. So you have to realize that you cannot look at these people as actual brothers in arms. You have to look at these people as actually saboteurs and enemies, as you should look at them. You should look at these people with their so-called pro-black track records and actually hold them to some of the stuff that they are saying. If they're promising benediction from all these people who are left on the market, then they should be out here providing for these actual people who they're trying to promise and push off on the other people. Again, you got a lot of promises, but you don't have a lot of producers. And the promisers seem to have more of a say in society than the actual producers are. Because you have to realize that everybody wants to benefit from the insurance policy, but nobody really wants to pay for the insurance policy. What's going on, Hope? So you have to realize you've been cultured into the myth of Atlas. So you have to understand what the myth of Atlas actually is. I'm just going to show you a picture of it so that way you can see how your life is being held to a standard that you shouldn't even be held to. Right here. That's what you're doing. You're being cultured into holding up the sins of other people in society rather than them dealing with those actual sins themselves within their own time period. That's what you're doing. You are holding up these people actual problems in society, the things that they refuse to do in their life, the things that they refuse to take responsibility for in their life. You're holding their sins above your head, and you are being the deliberate scapegoat into making sure that you stop from your actual progress in life to deal with other people's burdens in life. You have to realize that these things have nothing to do with you. And the best thing you can possibly do is find people who are not cultured in such a format so that way you can be able to make a new family with a new mindset. Because these people have overprocreated and we've lost the biological war. Now you look around, we're surrounded by people who have this sort of mind state. So what is done by specific action can be done by greater specific action on the actual other side. They decided on their own who they chose and the reason why they chose them. They strategically have placed themselves in a perfect position to maintain power. The only thing is they're not productive people. So what you have to do with your chances in life, you have to turn around and make counter actions to make sure that these people do not have an additional say beyond the actual point in the trail of destruction to which they cause. You have to understand they use your youth, your ego, your lack of focus, your inability to have a plan, which is a fertile ground for a narcissist's direction. They know damn well the actual things that they're trying to turn you onto at a very young age is going to destroy your life. You want to know why? It destroyed their life. But rather than tell you these things up front, they will sit there and let you walk head first into a problem to which you can actually dodge. And this is the actual things that they're actually deliberately giving you as so-called advice when it's anything but that. Rael, that's the myth of Atlas, where the Atlas has to hold up the heavens on his shoulders. That's what that is. So you have to understand that you don't actually need to be doing these things. And these things can actually be changed within a generation or two. Because remember, they spent a generation and a half stockpiling these communities full of non-viable children for everybody to take care of, just so that way they can keep their gains. So at the end of the day, you have to make counter maneuvers so that way you don't make sure that these numbers grow. You keep your numbers very small so that way you can move very far. And that's how you actually solve this actual problem. Now, when people come here from other countries, they already got this stuff solved and under control. So they don't have to worry about these things. That's right, Goshen. The weight of the black community on the shoulders of the inexperienced and the people who are not actually responsible for it. While the grown-ups around watch you hoist that thing upon your shoulders and they know you can't be able to move with those things on you. So it's very deliberate. You have to understand that they don't want you talking about your conditions. They don't want you congregating online talking about your actual experiences within this actual context because that's a threat to their power. Is an empowered and a agency driven man who's not going to make the same mistakes of the past, who actually care about the things that he's creating. So long as you don't care about the things that you're creating, you're going to end up just like that man in that photograph, holding up the weight of the world on your shoulders when it's not even your responsibility. But you have to understand, holding the weight or making you look like you have to carry your weight is a hell of a lot better than the people who actually cause these problems taking responsibility for their actual actions in society. You have to understand that they're going to try to conflate you hating women when you're actually focused on what women actually did in society and those personnel that they did it within society. Now, you have to understand that most of these people in Black America think that so long as you're doing this and sex is the actual outcome of it, you're able to do anything possible in society and that other people have to clean up this actual mess of yours when it's actually a mess of theirs that they refuse to clean up, period. You have to understand that none of this stuff is your responsibility. And most of these people who claim to be pro-Black are not. They're merely covering for other people in society to which they want continued access to. They actually are not interested in actual progress for anybody. You have to understand that there is no war that has been won through silence. The people who actually want to silence you, they actually don't want you talking and speaking because the things that you talk about, well, if they can malign your actual experiences in a said environment, you have to understand that they actually have cut you from actually bringing them to a level of responsibility. Because of course, the people who are actually causing the problem don't want you talking about the problem to which they're called. Yeah, but it's deliberate. So at this point, you have to assume sexual leverage through deliberate silence. And please do keep in mind, these people do not, I repeat, do not want to make it look like that they have a lesser acceptance level among the people who they actually want access to. That's the actual problem here. So you have to realize this stuff is very deliberate because everybody thinks that since they don't want to be productive in order to feed people, which is what an alpha is supposed to do, they just want to cut across straight to the women, which is what alphas don't do. Because in other functioning societies and cultures, they would never let a non-productive individual go around impregnating anybody. Actually, if you didn't produce, you didn't get access to any type of woman in society. And it used to be that way in their society. But then, you had the 70s and welfare and feminism and the man not in the house. And that's what kind of gave rise to the problems that we're having right now. It's pretty much a nuclear explosion that's been happening over and over again, day by day, since the 70s. And we're living with the outcomes of it right now. And you can tell the actual decent older individuals from the indecent ones based on how much level of responsibility they want to hold people to within actual society. You have to realize that most of these people are A-okay with things being the way they are, because if things did change, they would actually have to take some level of responsibility for their actual culpability for things that actually happen in society on their watch. So it's easy to call yourself like you call yourself, like you care when you don't have a track record, because track records are not meant for anything in Black society. Since most people think on an emotional standpoint, this is how you get huckster class of frauds who come in and actually come through and make sure that things are not fixed, because if things are fixed, then they're responsible. So you have to understand that these things are just not your responsibility. But you have to understand that 50 years ago, these people were one per every family. Now you have to understand that these people are the majority of all the families that are being created right now. Because they're not interested in functional people. They're interested in maintaining power within this environment. And you have to understand that a person who would deliberately go out and do this stuff is a very dangerous individual. The only person. A lot, a lot of other people are actually getting there, but at the end of the day, yeah, he was the only one who was consistently on that specific purpose. So y'all have to understand, man, that this person who actually speaks for this and who actually holds up this actual system is a very dangerous individual that we don't need having any more power within the actual environment than they currently have. Thanks so much for the 999 super chat, Paul Blunt. You have to realize that these people are going to be growing in number as there become more and more of these women washing up on the shores from their life of equality, where they was able to make their own decisions, but they're not held to any type of responsibility. Oh yeah. Of course, TPOT. Yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, but yeah, that's pretty clear. Yeah, but you have to understand that these things can be solved by you. You don't need to wait for anybody else to actually come solve these problems for you. You are actually the test case of whether or not this stuff actually works. And you're under no responsibility to take these people on who have these actual problems in society, even though you're being socially manipulated, that's the term, into doing so. So you have to understand that these people who have this privileged access, it's only access. Control is more important than access. Self-control is better than access. Having a level of self-dignity is more than giving it away for simple access. Access is why they did stuff. Access isn't why you need to do anything. You need to be working on your own specific level of power and maintaining it within this work environment, because this country is in free fall. So you have to understand that there's really no reason to repeat the mistakes of the past, because those people made those mistakes, and those mistakes had nothing to do with you, by the way. So you have to understand that you can solve this. But you have to focus on being the maximum amount of productive by yourself. You have to stop trying to grade your entire life looking at it through the eyes of these people who are nothing but domestic usurers. You have to understand that most of the black community is ran on male usury. And you truly have to understand that you do not have to deal with these things in that specific sort of way. You can actually do this on your own. You don't need a whole bunch of help in doing that. You really don't. But these people want to make basic information and basic access to actual human premium in society when it really isn't. But you have people who are deliberately treating you like this in society to boost their own market credibility. But I'm just telling you that you don't have to do those things. You actually deserve a viable shot at having a decent life. Listening to most of these older individuals in this space is not going to give it to you because but you have to understand that within the black context, intentions count more than actual proof. This is why people waste a lot of time on things that they truly don't need to because it feels good to them rather than they know that it's actually good for them. Those are the things that are actually happening here. So you have to understand that this is actually what's going on. Decide to give up and give into this entire system, your life is over at that point. The only thing you can do from here on out is maintain destruction. That's the only thing you can do. And what they do is they live vicariously through the youth to help them maintain the gains of everybody else within society without trying to actually empower the actual person in the same society. You have to realize it really is not that hard to get. However, there's a lot of forces here of people who actually benefit a lot from these actual things that are happening. You have to understand that there's really no well documented or demonstrated reason to be taking on the actual problems of older women in society who didn't choose right. You have to understand that if you wasn't being feminine the entire time, we don't have time for you to all of a sudden learn it like a programming language and try to slide home and safe when you never even ran any type of race. And you have to understand that you have to let them suffer and starve. else is at. So it's kind of like a 25-year-old's at the damn monkey bars. It's something just don't look right and it's out of place. Most of these people should have moved on to other things in society and life right now. But the only thing that they're doing is ensuring that you never move forward past a certain point and to actually connect your life to things that don't mean. Selfishness is not moving on to things that can do a better job for you in life. Selfishness is actually intentionally holding yourself back for the sake of others. You see, the people who are actually far more greedy than everyone else is acting like they're the saviors of everyone else. You have a lot of these type of cowards going around within black society and culture. And it isn't just limited to black people. There's a lot of white dudes who go through this stuff too. But at the end of the day, you're always going to have the male spinster there who doesn't want to see progress, who's always going to deliberately not understand very simple concepts in order to keep chaos going. Because these people benefit off chaos more than anybody else. They don't benefit in order. They can't stand order. Just like the woman who they nurture the irresponsibility of. A man who sits in this environment who is not productive, they hate order. Because the moment that you have order and the moment that you have to prove your entire track record, that's the moment where these people look extremely out of place. So that's why most people actually keep this stuff up. So that way none of this stuff works. And then they act like they're the saviors of everybody while encouraging the same dysfunction that gave them access to their own power. So you have to understand they're actually maintaining their power within the society, just like most of the non-feminine women who are maintaining their power in society. So I'm just saying these things are not that hard to figure out. But you have to understand that this stuff was created on a household by household basis, and they can actually be fixed on a household by household basis. You have to understand that your decision making process and skills is actually what's going to get you out of this stuff. It doesn't matter how high your Daggle IQ is. If this person does not respect you at the end of the day, and if you put your kids in the actual hands of that person, then dude, you don't have a future. So this is what we're going to be doing in the future. So this is why we're taking this stuff in a different direction. So that way you can see people who claim victory in the so-called game. It's like the game of Tetris. No one has won the game of Tetris, just like they haven't won the game of matriarchy. Even though they play, but they haven't won. Just like a casino, the moment that you're not putting any money have any type of viability. Because you don't see people coming to America snatching these people up and putting them on their team. They already been warned about how these people actually move and operate out here. So y'all have to realize, man, that this stuff is actually not even needed. It actually needs to be destroyed. But they're already doing a good job of destroying it on their own. It's not like we need to do anything to help them. So you guys have to realize, man, this choice is and has always been in your hands. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. We'll chop this up for another hour, then we're gonna get up out of here. I don't want to hold y'all for
So what I'm saying clearly is that you don't have to keep waiting for anybody to figure this stuff out for you. This stuff has been laid out before you. And if you don't understand how the Spinster-lectuals, the ones who got all the answers to everything, but they hide behind the collective ignorance of the entire group itself in order to have the conversations. Intellectuals have no problem going into environments and having productive conversation that's going to lead somewhere. But you have to understand that the Spinster-lectuals are here to intellectualize failure and really don't even depend on any type of progress itself. You have to realize that that's where we currently are. Like when people call themselves an entertainer or cloud chasing to the nth degree, that shit is just not to be respected, man. It's not to be respected at all. But you have to realize that most of these dudes are only here for entertainment, and that's fine. But at the end of the day, I don't have these people anywhere close to me in my life because I actually require you to be invested in life in order to do business with me. And my life has never been not safe every time I get one of these people who believes in entertainment more than progress or claim that they're pro-black or claim that they're black conservative. They should have the shit knocked out of them because they ain't got no fucking track record of it. Like, this is what I'm saying. A lot of people want to be something, but they don't want to be invested in it. The only thing that they actually have done is actually diluted their own power within the environment and revel in the actual non-progression of people within the same environment itself. That's why I don't have to worry about shit because I've already been through this stuff before. I've already seen these people before. I've already seen them inside my family. I've already seen it. I've already been taught how to move past these people. Period. I've already been taught that. So what you got to understand is the Spinster-lectuals, the ones who claim that they don't want you to leave, but they can't provide you access to decent options within the environment. That's on them. The moment they start going down that road, that is on them to provide those options. It ain't on us to settle for shit. It's not on us to settle for anything. If you claim things are out there, then you better provide it. And if you can't provide it, or if you cannot argue your point of view in front of other people, then you're just full of shit. That's all. This stuff really isn't that hard, man. But at the end of the day, you have to maximize your own level of choice, and you can't do that without productivity. A lot of people want to remove the productivity piece out of masculinity and put it up to a woman's choice so that way they don't have to live up to anything else but handing over their power to her. I get that. However, that's not going to help you out. Most men can win through productivity. Not everybody can win through the domestic counterpart's choice. And you don't have to be SYSBM or IPMO or any other group to get that basic simple fact. At the end of the day, if they wasn't there by the time you created the stuff, you're not supposed to hand this stuff off to them like a lead option in college. Like they're expecting a lead option right now. That you're going to produce all the stuff and then you're just going to lead option off to them while you take the hit and they throw the ball downfield or maybe run behind you. That's why you got to have open conversation and dialogue where that way there could be some type of responsibility held for the actual ideas that are brought up within the space. There's really no reason for people not to know what's going on a year later after the Capitol riots on January 6th. There's no reason for people to understand it. No reason at all. You have to understand that I'm culturing people to make sure that they don't give a shit about your problems. That's what I'm here for, to make sure that you fail. That as soon as you leave this productivity environment and you be on some entertainment bullshit, I'm here to make sure that other cultures hold up that goddamn stop sign for you. Only thing I gotta do is look at the family setup. You're not on that shit, they're gonna leave your ass behind. That's what I'm here for. To make sure that you pay for sitting around here needing to be entertained when you should be focusing on your goddamn productivity. A lot of people don't want to even focus on that actual basic principle of being a man, what you actually produce. And the other part of being a man, who you give it away to. All this stuff is easy, man. It's not even that hard. But nobody benefits off a disciplined man but the disciplined man itself. That's the problem. Everybody want to be undisciplined and want somebody else to rescue them from their deliberate consequences inside the environment itself that has nothing to do with productivity. It has everything to do with you feeding yourself into a problem that you don't need. So with that said, I'm the man tomorrow. I want to thank you guys for coming through. And you guys have a really nice night. Peace. I'll see you tomorrow about this Antonio Brown nonsense. Later.